Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Today is Show and Tell episode number 2. This is Brian with Bear Cards 34. And for today's Show and Tell, I'm going to be talking about my oldest complete football card set. And for me, that is the 1975 Topps NFL football card set. I bought this at a card show in Salt Lake from a really nice couple who had some old sets from the 70s and 80s. And so I picked up this set. I also bought a couple others from them, which I may show you in the future. But anyway, this one is the 1975 Topps set. It's a 528 card set. And it's most notable for having a couple of big Hall of Fame rookies, one of which, of course, is Lynn Swann, Hall of Fame receiver, football analyst, among other things. He was really well known. If those of you who haven't seen his highlights, it might be worth checking out. He had some very acrobatic and graceful plays, a big part of the Steelers dynasty. And then another one was Dan Fouts, and he was just lighting it up. I mean, the San Diego offense for him with Kellen Winslow, John Jefferson, and a bunch of others was really, really successful in the late 70s and into the 80s especially, I think, early to mid-80s. He was just lighting it up with numbers most quarterbacks could only dream of, so another Hall of Famer there. So anyway, I'll kind of jump in and kind of show you some of these cards that kind of jump out. They started off with a few of the statistical leaders from 1974. In this case, the passing leaders for Sonny Jurgensen and Ken Anderson. Back of the cards are kind of dark, as you can see. The green here. There you go. Now you'll notice none of the cards have the team logos on them. For quite some time, they were not allowed to share the team logos. And I think with this, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 1982 where they were first able to? I don't know, somewhere around there. All right, now here's a card of George Blanda. Now he played for the Chicago Bears among many teams. He had a crazy long career, 26 seasons that he played as a quarterback and kicker. Started off with the Bears back in 1949, and then he went to the Colts just for like one season and then was already back to the Bears again from late 1950 until 1958. He didn't retire until 1975, and if you look at this card, you can really see he is an old-looking man. I can't even imagine. You know what? Maybe I can. Adam Vinatieri, he's starting to get weather-worn like this guy, but yeah. Blanda definitely played longer than anyone else in the history of the game. Then this card right here, I make note of this one. This is Don Woods. He was the Rookie of the Year that season. Well, the season before, anyway. So this is his rookie card. And it's interesting to note because he was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, and then they cut him before the season began, and the Chargers signed him. And so even though he didn't get active on the team until week 3, he still had almost 1,200 yards rushing, ran for over 5 yards a carry. So yeah, he was Rookie of the Year. But the next year he had a leg injury and never fully recovered from that. Never saw, the flashes from his rookie season. That was kind of it. Another card here. This is Sam Bam Cunningham. For those of you who are familiar with Randall Cunningham, this is his older brother. Sam Cunningham is in the Patriots Hall of Fame. So I just thought it was kind of interesting to see, Randall Cunningham's brother. This guy right here, Jackie Smith, on the Cardinals. So he was a great tight end, Hall of Famer. Spent his whole career, I think, with the Cardinals. But anyway, he ended up playing for the Cowboys his final season. And even though he's a great player, had an amazing career, he's most well known for dropping a wide open pass in the end zone of the Super Bowl. The Cowboys ended up losing that game by 4 points. So some people kind of look at that play and that drop. Now, in all fairness, it wasn't the final play of the game. There was still plenty of game left. So maybe history may be coming down a little hard on him, but it was a tough play for him for sure. Here's a Hall of Famer, Buck Buchanan, for the Chiefs. And another Hall of Famer, this one for the team. I think, what are they? As of right now, today of the filming of this, they are officially known as the Washington football team. But at the time, obviously, the Washington Redskins, Charlie Taylor, 14-year career and in the Hall of Fame. So this one right here, this is Isaac Curtis. He's not really that well known these days, but they actually made a rule in the NFL because of him. So he had a 12-year career, and they had a rule which they've kind of labeled the Isaac Curtis rule, because he was just so fast, no defensive backs in the NFL could keep up with him. He was getting double-teamed, triple-teamed, and it led to, in one playoff game against the Dolphins, Don Shula started having players push him off the line, bump into him, hold him all the way down the field. And they saw success with it, so then other teams started copying him. And as a result of that, there was a new rule that came in where defenses could only block the wide receiver in the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And then after that, down the line, further than 5 yards, that would be considered holding. So, it was kind of that was a rule inspired by Isaac Curtis that we started seeing later on. Chris Collinsworth even once said that Isaac Curtis changed the game of football because of his lightning speed and the way they had to adapt to it. So that's another one. This right here is Bubba Smith. He was a really good football player, played for the Raiders, the Colts, but he's also really well known from the Police Academy movies. He was Hightower. A lot of you may recognize this guy, Dan Deerdorf. He was one of the Monday Night Football analysts back in the 80s, I think, and definitely in the 90s for a while. The card is super off-centered, but it's nice to have as part of that set. Now here's a card. This guy's a super interesting player. So for those of you who don't know Rocky Bleier, he was a running back, fullback for the Steelers, and during his rookie season, he was drafted into the U.S. Army, and he ended up going to the Vietnam War. And during that war, he was wounded. He was shot when his platoon was ambushed, and then while he was on the ground wounded, a grenade went off nearby, and shrapnel went into his leg, and he lost a little part of his right foot. He ended up getting the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart. I mean, this guy's a major war hero. And the doctors had told him there was no way he would ever be able to play football again. He had many surgeries. He had to really work his way back, and he actually returned. And then he became a 4-time Super Bowl champion. So this is an amazing story, an amazing player to be able to come back from that and then be so successful. And that's his rookie card right there. And then here we have Drew Pearson for the Cowboys. This is his rookie card as well. Another player that I really like from that time period, Harold Carmichael, great receiver for the Eagles. Just saw him with a lot of success. Now, I've mentioned in some other videos, but one of the things I love to collect is players who have an association with the state of Utah. Now, a big part of that is because Utah does not have a professional team. And even if they did, by the way, I'm still going to be a Bears fan until the day I die. However, because we don't have a team here, it's always really fun to root for the local guys. So this guy right here, Cornell Green, this guy played at Utah State. Now, what's interesting about Cornell Green is that, he had a 13-year career with the Cowboys. He did not play college football at all. He played college basketball, and he was awesome at it. He was a 2-time All-American. He was even drafted in the NBA. Never drafted in the NFL, obviously, but anyway, there was the head coach of the basketball team for Utah State gave a tip to the Cowboys. I don't know what the connection was or how they knew them, but anyway, the Cowboys got a tip from the basketball coach about Cornell Green. and the Cowboys ended up taking a look at him and then signed him. And Cornell Green ended up being on the Cowboys' 25th anniversary team, 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. Really cool story there. And for those of you who follow baseball, historically, he's the brother of Red Sox infielder Pumpsie Green. I don't follow baseball as much as I do football and basketball. I'm not familiar with him, but again, just shows the athleticism from that family. Speaking of families in sports, here is Bob Greasy. His son Brian also played. So Bob Greasy, a part of some of those great Dolphins teams with Don Shula, Hall of Fame member as well. And speaking of Hall of Fame quarterbacks, here we are with Roger Staubach. And right here we have a Jack Ham, part of the Steelers dynasty. And then Ahmad Rashad right here. Now, for me, I wasn't really familiar with Ahmad Rashad as a football player at all. I knew him as the wife, or as the husband of Felicia Rashad from The Cosby Show, and obviously from NBA Inside Stuff, which was a great show that I watched as a kid growing up. He was the host of that, and he did a great job on that too. Here's a Hall of Fame quarterback, Len Dawson of the Chiefs. And here we go with Archie Manning, obviously father of Peyton and Eli Manning. And right here's a Hall of Famer, Jim Marshall. Again, kind of like with Jackie Smith, not to the same extent maybe, but Jim Marshall, great player, Hall of Famer, amazing, career. However, he is also somewhat known for being Wrong Way Jim, where he, I think it was a fumble that he recovered, and then he ran and returned it all the way to the opposite end zone, went the wrong way, and gave the other team a safety. So I remember that play is always on the old bloopers reels. This guy right here, Jim Turner, kicked for many, many years. I just throw him in there because he's another Utah State Aggie, so always want to make note of those. Ken Anderson, I think this is his second year card. He's not in the Hall of Fame, but honestly, if you go back and look at his statistics and what he did in his career, he's borderline Hall of Famer. He's a very, very good player. All right, so this right here is Tom Dempsey. Now, Tom Dempsey is another interesting player. For 40 years, he held the record for the longest field goal kick of all time, which was 63 yards. And he was born with no toes on his right foot. That's his kicking foot. And so he had no toes, and he had no fingers on his right hand as well. So he wore a flat iron kicking shoe and kicked kind of like a straight ahead kick. And anyway, he made a 63-yarder. It was tied 3 times later on by Jason Elam, Sebastian Janikowski, and then David Akers. They all tied with him with a 63-yard field goal later on. But then it was Matt Prater in 2013 who had a 64-yarder, who now holds the record. And I believe Graham Gano also kicked a 63-yarder yesterday. Yeah, if only. After that record had been broken. So just a handful of people have been able to kick that far. Again, going back to Utah State, this is Bill Munson. He was a Lions quarterback, also played quarterback at Utah State. Here's Hall of Famer Bob Lilly for the Cowboys. And they also had these cards here. This is a 1974 All-Pro card with a couple greats, Fran Tarkenton and Ken Stabler. And right here, we see this is the running back All-Pros. So you've got O.J. Simpson and Lawrence McCutcheon. So I put this card out here just because his name is Conrad Dobler. And again, I don't know a lot about this guy, but I just remember an NFL Films piece on him when I was a kid that talked about how he was basically the meanest football player that anyone ever knew. So he always stands out to me as a result of that. Now, next up, this is Darryl Stingley. This is his second year card. I actually have his rookie card as well. That's his rookie card there. Darryl Stingley is one of those tragic NFL stories in some ways. He ended up becoming quadriplegic after being paralyzed in a game. He was 26 years old. He was just entering his 5th year with the Patriots. And then this guy right here, Jack Tatum, ended up hitting him. It was a preseason game as well, where he was hit hard and ended up living his life as a quadriplegic. Unfortunately, he passed away back in 2007, and it was actually from complications of his quadriplegia. So that was unfortunate, but he did a lot of great things even after that accident. He wrote a book about his life. He went back to college and got a degree. He had a few kids. So he was really able to make the most that he could of his life even afterwards. Right here we have Chuck Foreman. That might be his second year card. I'm not sure. Now, I'm going to put this card in here. This is Bobby Douglas. He was one of the Bears quarterbacks from that year. I'm only throwing him in there because I love the Bears, and the Bears were horrible in 1974 and 75. It was after, the 74 season. This would be 1975. They drafted Walter Payton, thank goodness. He's not a part of the set because back then they always put out the cards of the player the year after they played. This was kind of like just before the hope came back to the Bears in the form of Walter Payton. All right, so right here we've got Franco Harris, again, Hall of Fame running back for the Steelers. And this is Fred Dreier. He had a TV show back in the 80s called Hunter. And what's kind of interesting with him is Fred Dreier actually was one of three finalists for the role of Sam Malone in the TV show Cheers. But it ended up going to Ted Danson. And Fred Dreier did make a couple appearances on the Cheers show. And anyway, he ended up being the lead actor in a show called Hunter back in the day. I didn't watch it very much, but I was familiar with it, and I always knew that, the guy who played Hunter had been in the NFL, so I thought that was pretty cool. Here's John Riggins, back in his Jets days. Here's Ted Hendricks. So, again, another one of those NFL legends. This is kind of weird seeing him in a Packers uniform. I always, associate him with the Raiders. He also played for the Colts early on in his career. And then this right here, we've got Jim Plunkett. And I actually kind of put this in the background. I was able to meet Jim Plunkett at an autograph show once on my birthday back in the 90s. I was the first person in line. There was a big line, actually. But Jim Plunkett actually kind of did some small talk with me while we waited in line before they let us know we could proceed and get autographs. And I mentioned to him that it was my birthday, so he, wrote "Happy Birthday" to me on my autograph picture, which I thought was very thoughtful of him. I also have his rookie card here. Again, this is a guy who's very much associated with the Raiders, but he was a draft pick of the Patriots. I think he might have even been the first pick of the draft. I can't remember for sure, but he was an early round pick. Didn't really have the success in New England that they had probably hoped for, but then he found a lot of success with the Raiders and some Super Bowl wins as well. So here's another guy, Broncos and Raiders, Lyle Alzado. Right here we have, they made some of these cards. This is a record holder of O.J. Simpson, and this was as a highlight of his 2003 yards, so he was the first person to gain 2,000 yards in a season. Still one of only a handful to have been able to do that. Now this card right here is Mark Moseley. I don't know if that's his rookie card or not. It's one of his earlier cards for sure. Now the reason I make note of him is, as crazy as this is, in 1982 he was the not the rookie of the year. He was the NFL's MVP, most valuable player, and he's a kicker. It was a strike-shortened season. That was a strange year all around. But definitely, I feel that Marcus Allen really should have been the NFL MVP that year. But hey, congrats to Mark Moseley. That's cool. Kenny Stabler, Hall of Fame quarterback. Another Hall of Fame quarterback here, Fran Tarkenton. Then we've got Fred Biletnikoff. He was another one of those great receivers, tough receiver, always had stick-em all over his hands. So this card right here, this is Burgess Owens. I'm only mentioning him because I'm not too familiar with his politics, but here in Utah, he's actually running for senator. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And he played for a long time, mostly with the Raiders, actually. Here's a Mean Joe Green. Great player there. And right here we have Ray Guy. I think he's still the only punter to be in the Hall of Fame. And then we've got this card. These are the highlight cards. Now the reason I show this, let me show you. So here's another highlight card. This is, Cliff Branch gets 13 touchdown passes in a season, which is great, especially for back then. That's really something for back then. But look at this card right here for the Falcons. James punts 96 times in a season. So that card made me laugh. One of the highlights was that he was able to punt almost 100 times that year. All right, Terry Bradshaw. This guy right here, Altie Taylor, Utah State alum, and a longtime Lions running back as well. Here's a Hall of Famer, Jan Stenrud, kicker for the Chiefs. Right here we have Paul Krause, another Hall of Famer. He has the most interceptions of any player in NFL history. It's like 81 or something close to that. Here's the notorious O.J. Simpson. There we go. Ken Houston, Hall of Famer for the former Redskins. We've got Alan Page, NFL great, legend, Viking. Also played with the Bears for a few years at the end of his career. And there's a Cliff Branch rookie card right there. And I'll move these again. Just a couple more and we'll be done. Thanks for sticking with me for those who did. This one right here, speaking of Utah State Aggie players, this is the guy. This is the legend. There is a statue outside the stadium for him. The field is named after him. Multiple All-Pro, Pro Bowl. If you want to look at, NFL accolades, he's got them all. Went on to star in some TV shows, Little House on the Prairie, among others. Also an announcer for NBC for a while. Passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, but, he's the legend. I think the person in his wings would be Bobby Wagner. And I'm hoping one day Jordan Love, we'll see. Cross my fingers. So then you had the championships cards as well. So for the AFC, Pittsburgh 24, Oakland 13. And for the NFC, Minnesota 14, Los Angeles 10. And the Super Bowl card here, Steelers 16, Vikings 6. And then we have, just to round it out here, we have a Mel Blount rookie card and a Joe Theismann rookie card as far as the NFL. He was in the CFL, and they did make a card of his. I'd love to get that one day. But anyway, that's the Joe Theismann NFL rookie card. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. My thought on this is, this set was made before I was ever born. I never saw most of these players play. It was long before my time. However, I think it's important for us, as football card collectors, as hobby enthusiasts, to remember the past, and to look at, the players who came before, the legends. And I really like how a lot of the Panini products now make note of that. They introduce us to some of the old players. And so it's fun to go back and collect some of the old cards and to look into some of the stories of some of these players. So I hope that maybe this video encourages you to potentially maybe collect some of the old vintage type cards of certain teams or players or sets and get to know a little bit about the history of the game and how it's evolved since then. So anyway, that's going to do it for today. If you like my videos, I'd love for you to subscribe. Click a like if you enjoyed it. So that'll be it for today. I'll be back with another video in the near future. And in the meantime, I hope everyone is doing well, and I will talk to you next time.